What's up everybody, it's Yash and today I'm going to talk about photo studies, which is very essential for beginner artists if they want to become a skilled artist overall. So first things first, what is a photo study? I think most of you know about this, so I'll try to keep it short. Doing a photo study means breaking down the photo into simple forms and shapes and trying to learn from it in the process of creating it from scratch on your canvas as closely as possible. But the real question is, why should you do photo studies? To answer that question, let's see what a lot of photo studies can do for you. It will help you with the fundamentals. Say, what are the fundamentals really? I would say it's some set of rules which are based on the observation of the real world. What do you do in photo studies? You study and observe the real world. So in a way, you're polishing your fundamentals just by doing photo studies. I think emphasizing on anatomy and all these technical skills is not the thing you should be doing right now if you're at the beginning of your art journey. At first, you need to get comfortable at drawing stuff and get good at observing things. Talking about observation, photo studies develops your observational skills as well. I think the only thing which can make you thrive as an artist is observation. It is the only skill for which you don't need to bang your head onto books for years. You just need to get down to work and draw. By just doing photo studies, you start to get good at observing patterns and applying it to solve the problems you face in art. The best example for an observational artist would be Kim Jung-gi, one of the phenomenal artists that lived among us mere mortals. God rest his soul in peace. I know his work is pretty stylized, but he was very observant of anything and everything he saw. He had developed this skill of drawing everything in 3D at a very young age just by observing things. I think he was around 10 or 11 years old. At that age, most of us were probably eating boogers out of our nose. Yes, it was a disgusting thing to do, but we did it. You know why? Because it was just our art style. Anyways, in an interview, he said that he didn't learn the perspective, he just observed and learned to draw boxes in different angles, which is essentially what perspective is. So unknowingly, by learning to draw 3D forms and shapes, he learned perspective, which is a very important fundamental. Long story short, observation plays a huge role in developing exceptional skills, which can be improved by doing photo studies. Alright, next up, it helps with art style. I think everyone nowadays wants to find their own voice, or I would say their own art style, but you gotta know that art style is not some lost sock of yours. It can't be found, it is developed.
Wubba lubba dub dub!
It is developed by doing the sheer work of simply painting and drawing a lot. I want you to think about this. What is an art style really? It's simply a method of drawing or a certain look of the piece preferred by the artist. So how are you gonna know your preferred look or the method if you don't even understand the subject you wanna draw? And how are you gonna understand the subject? By doing photo studies. Now personally, when I do photo studies, I don't try to make an exact carbon copy of the photo. I think it's completely pointless and doesn't get you anywhere unless you wanna beat the Xerox machine at copying photos, which is again pointless. Drawing is not about replicating stuff, it's about interpreting it and improving on it, showing the world what you see. So when you start to interpret things in the photograph, you start to add your own flair to the piece, which helps you develop your art style as you go. One more thing, I think this is very obvious, but I'm gonna just say this anyway. Doing a lot of photo studies expands your visual library, and you know how important a visual library is for an artist. But what about the favorite artist of yours who draws from imagination? Yes, they did a lot of photo studies in the past, which is why their visual library is so vast that now they can draw from imagination. Well, drawing from imagination takes a lot more effort than just doing photo studies, but photo studies do help with imagination drawing at some level. Moving on, let's list down what are the things you need to keep in mind while doing a photo study. The reference. Before doing a photo study, you should know how to choose a reference photo so that you don't feel overwhelmed or lost and get optimal results. First, decide what topic you think you know less about. In other words, set a goal for that photo study session. It can be anything ranging from figure study, color study, value study, basically anything you want to get a good understanding of. If you want to know more about colors, choose a photo with natural lighting with less or no image filters. If you want to know more about figure drawing, choose a photo with full body character with less complicated background or no background at all. A photo study session can be highly versatile and specific. Basically, tailor it down to your own needs and weaknesses. Stylize. As I mentioned earlier, you don't need to copy the photo pixel by pixel. You're doing a photo study, not a photocopy. So keep that in mind, it will save you a lot of time. Well, that rhymes. Generally at first, you will feel a little bored, and to avoid this, you can add your own flair to the piece. But there's a catch to it. You should only stylize the elements that don't fall into the objectives objectives you set for that study session. Let me explain. So for example, if you choose a reference to study the light and the color, then you can stylize the eyes, hair, nose, mouth, pretty much everything except the light and the color of the piece, because you don't know much about color and light in the first place. If you try to change it in any capacity, there's a high chance you're gonna mess it up and you won't learn anything in the end. Also, whatever you're stylizing, try to make it as believable as possible. And if you can't do that, then it shows you need to work on those aspects too. So you shouldn't stylize those either and stick to the reference. Long story short, don't stylize anything that you don't know enough about. Critique objectively. At the end of the study session, when you are done with the piece, there's a 90% chance that you won't find the end result satisfactory. And it's completely okay. It's a photo study. It's not meant to be a masterpiece. The only thing that matters is that you learn from it. So without condemning yourself, critique the piece objectively. Take a note of the mistakes or the things you can improve in the next session and move on to the next piece. On to the last point of this section, fresh eyes. Since you are looking at the canvas for a while, you get numb to the mistakes you make along the way. So all you need is a fresh pair of eyes. Well, not literally. You need to rewire your mind so that it can see those mistakes. To do that, you simply need to do two things. Take short breaks between the session and flip your canvas more often. Now you will start to see those mistakes and can instantly correct them. Alright, now let's dive into the pool of mistakes to avoid while doing a photo study. Number 1. Don't turn your brain off. Since you're doing photo study and you don't need to worry much about creativity, it becomes really easy to turn off your brain and copy the reference straight away. This mistake of turning your brain off beats the whole purpose of doing a photo study in the first place. You need to be cognitively aware of things happening in the photo, but with a turned off brain, you're basically drawing like a zombie, so you won't learn anything in the end. Don't worry about details. I've already said this earlier, trying to make a replica of the photo is pointless. These photo study sessions are not photocopy sessions, so don't worry about making a carbon copy of the photo. On to the last point, don't color pick straight away. If you wanna understand color and get good at picking colors, then you need to stop eye-dropping color straight away. Always start with eyeballing the color first. Make multiple attempts at guessing the required color. Try to guess as closely as possible. If you fail to recreate that required color after those attempts, then take the eyedropper tool, and while using the eyedropper tool, take notes how the color was actually and what it requires to recreate it. That's about the mistakes to avoid while doing photo studies. Let's talk about expectations. It would be boring at first to do photo studies because there's no creativity in it. It is not fun to draw. But after practicing for a couple of months, you can really inject yourself in the study and make it more fun by making a fan art out of it or adding your OCs in it and grow your art style in the process. Before you go, let me remind you about the clause in the deal you signed. If you find this video helpful, you gotta hit that like button and tap on that scrumptious red subscribe button.
But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill.
Anyways, that's it for today. See you in the next one.